If you thought that After Effects was the one and only spot for motion graphics in 2025, then you might just be wrong. Because in this video, I'm going to show you how to create this viral thumbnail throwing effect in the one and only Davinci Resolve. And for those of you that just want to skip the line and get this effect right off the rip, go ahead and click the link down below in the description and you can pick it up right there. All right, so once you actually get into Davinci Resolve, this is where all the magic's gonna happen for this effect. And what you're gonna wanna do is create a new timeline. So go right click in your media pool, timelines, create new timeline, name it whatever you want. I just name it Motion Graphics Remake because I'm remaking this effect for you guys. And then you're gonna wanna make sure that it's 1920 by 1080 and also that the frame rate is 30 frames per second. Come up into the media pool. We're going to right click, create a new fusion composition, and I'm just going to name this motion graphic. We're going to select the frame rate of 30. Okay, now we're going to drag that fusion clip into our timeline, right clicking on your fusion clip, change clip duration, and set the time to 10 seconds. Now that we have that, we need to go into the fusion page. Then once we are in the fusion page, you're gonna need your thumbnails. So once you find a thumbnail that you like on YouTube, copy the link and head to this website to download YouTube thumbnails for free. And we're going to paste in the link, click download thumbnail, and just save it wherever you wanna save your files. Then we head back to Davinci, and once you have about 30 of those thumbnails, you can go ahead and start creating this effect. Feel free to use any of the thumbnails from my channel and make sure to send me a video of you using this effect on Twitter. All right, now once we're in the fusion page, if you want to follow along here, go ahead to workspace, layout presets, fusion presets, and mid flow to get this set up right here. Next, we want a background node. Go ahead, connect that to our media out. This is to set the overall comp size to 1920 by 1080. So change the transparency down to 0. And then we're gonna go ahead and grab another background node. So hit shift space on your keyboard, grab another background. And what we're gonna do with this one is we're going to grab an image plane 3D, and I actually want this to go vertical, and then we need a merge 3D, and we need a renderer 3D. With the renderer 3D, go ahead, set this to hardware renderer. This is going to make it so that way your computer uses its GPU to do all this as opposed to its CPU. The next thing we need is you're going to want to grab your thumbnail once you have it. So let me just go ahead and grab one in here. I'll label them 1 through 31 just so I could keep track. And so we got one thumbnail in here. Let's just pretend this was the first thumbnail, and we can't connect it to that merge 3D because it's not in the 3D space. So we need to bring in another image plane 3D for our thumbnail. You can actually rename all these thumbnails in here too with F2 if you want. Let's just rename it thumbnail 20. Then once we have our image plane, you can see our thumbnails on here. And if we bring our thumbnail up into the viewer, this isn't exactly how I had the effect before because we actually had rounded edges. So in order to get those rounded edges, we need to bring in a rectangle mask, bump up the width and the height to 1, and set the corner radius to not 20 to 0.2. And now you can see that the edges are rounded. So what we're going to do from here is I'm just going to start organizing everything so it comes in sideways like this. I'm going to bring in a transform 3D after our image plane, and then I'm also going to bring in another merge 3D. This is how I was keeping things organized here. So I'll have a second copy and then a third copy, which will all be connected to this merge. and then we'll create another 3 connected to another merge, just for organization purposes. Let's go ahead and separate this from all the stuff down here. So let's bring this way up here because we're gonna have like 30 of these coming in. And let's go ahead and set up our first transform 3D. So actually, right off the bat, let's connect this merge to this merge just so we can kind of see what's going on in here and bring our renderer up on the screen. Oh, also forgot to add in a camera 3D. So we need to click on our merge 3D down here and bring in a camera. Make sure it's the main merge, the one with the background on it. And then I already did this before, so I know how far we need to drag out our camera. If you never worked in the 3D space, again, the reason you're not seeing anything in our renderer is because our camera's on top of our 3D image. So we need to drag our camera back. So I'm gonna drag this back to 5. This is what we were working with before. And we actually want our background to appear. So we don't want it to be transparent, and actually it's not transparent, it's black right now, it's just not big enough. So we're going to bump up the scale on our background. We're going to set something, some large number. It doesn't need to be this is what I did before, 145. And we're actually going to set our background color to something different. I believe the code I used was E1 E1 E1, and that's, yep, that's like a whitish gray looking color. And then if we come up here back to our thumbnails, bring in a transform because we need to set the size of our thumbnail on the screen. We want it to be smaller. Set it to 0.3. That looks like a good size. Now I'm going to animate the thumbnail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring our merge 3D up into the screen, the one with just the thumbnail, and I'm going to set this in the left viewer. So I'm going to right click down here and select left, and then I'm going to set some keyframes on the Y and the Z translation, on the 0th frame, on the 24th frame, and then on the 37th frame. Let's do this one real quick because this is probably the easiest one to do. And what we're going to do is we're just going to shift the Z value up more so that way our logo appears more on the screen, or our thumbnail. So I'll set that at about 3 right now for the Z, and then I want it to also be up more as well. So 0.22 and 3. And then with this next one, I'm actually going to redo the keyframe. So I'm going to unclick the keyframe and redo it just so it updates to that middle keyframe. And now what we're going to do for this one is I'm going to bring it forward as big as you want it to be. So we'll do 3.55 for right now. I'm not sure all of our thumbnails are going to be able to fit on the screen, so we might need to adjust later on. And then you're going to drop this so that way your thumbnail is off the screen. So we'll come down to about 0.4, and then we'll do the same thing with this original one with our first frame on 0. You can see the path starting to appear in the left viewer. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to even touch the Z value yet. I'm just going to bring this off the screen, and we can even do -1. I think will give us something nice. We'll probably need to adjust that Z value, but now we have a path that's kind of looking pretty linear. So if we look at this, yeah, that doesn't look right. So what we need to actually do is we need to come into our spline, click on our transform 3D, hit show only selected, hit Control A on the keyboard and S to smooth everything out. And now you can see we have a more natural motion. It's not that good still. I want to make some further adjustments. We want this being more of like a hook. So what we're gonna do is I'm actually going to push this Z value forward. And now we're gonna get something like this. There's a little bit of a, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit of like a lag in between. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to zoom to fit again and hit Control A and S and smooth this out. And that's looking a bit better. All right, so now that we got it all smoothed out with S, we can hit Control T on our keyboard to bring up the easing menu, and then we can hit Control A and actually add a slight easing to this. And I'm gonna do 60 on the ease in, and then we'll do 40 for the ease out. Next thing that we're going to do, now that we have our animation how we want it, we're going to come into our image plane because there is a bit of rotation going on in the effect before. So what we're going to do for this is we're going to add some controls to our image plane. Right click on our image plane, edit controls, and select number. And we're going to do value X, select the 3D page, and we're going to do -1000 to 1000. We're going to select slider control and then hit OK. We're going to do the same thing again, except for value Y this time. Number 3D, 1000, slider control, okay. Edit controls, value Z, this is the last one, -1000, 1000, and slider control. Okay, so now we have a slider for all these values. It doesn't do anything. It's because we need to add some expressions to our rotations. So we're gonna add an expression to our rotations, and we're gonna link our X to our value X. We're gonna link our Y to our value Y, and we're gonna link our Z to our value Z. At the beginning of this expression, we're going to do time, whoops, it needs to be all lowercase, time, star for times 1, and then plus our value X. And we're gonna do the same thing for our Y, and then we're gonna do the same thing for our Z, except we're gonna do time times 10. So now we got some funky looking stuff going on because we got our rotation in our object, because our object rotates over time, and you can even see it popping up in the viewer. So I'm gonna even further lower our Y value here for this first one. Let me see if we make it as low as -1. Let's see what happens. We can actually play around with our points here to adjust how our animation appears on the screen when it pops up. So you can adjust these values to change the rotation of the starting point, and then you can adjust these numbers if you want it to rotate less or more as well by creating larger numbers or smaller numbers for times. You can do whatever. All right, so before smoothing anything out, we need to come into our image plane, change the Z value to 1 for translation, and we need to readjust our transform values and make them 1 greater in the Z space. So just bump everything up 1, and now we're going to come into our transform. We're going to ease everything. So let's do easing of Control A, and then 50, and then 50 for the ease out. And now we got something like this. Boom. Looks beautiful. Now, how we're going to create more of these is we're going to copy and paste what we already have here, and we're just going to copy our all the nodes that we got here, other than the rectangle mask. We don't need the rectangle mask, so because we can just connect this one to all of our thumbnails. It's going to use less processing power. Then we'll connect our transform to our merge, and now what we're going to do is we're going to start jumping into the transforms and shifting it so the thumbnails throw in different locations. How we're going to do that is we're going to adjust the transform 3D on the Y value for the first one. We're going to type in -15, or actually let's do +15 for this one. And now we're going to create another duplicate and connect the rectangle mask here. And for the last one, we're going to do the opposite of what we did up here. So we're going to do -15. Now you can see that the animations are all coming up on the screen at the same time, which is fine if that's what you want to do. There's a lot of different variations of this effect, but if it's not, we can go ahead and we can jump into the image planes and we can adjust the values to make the thumbnails look different when they pop up on the screen. So I'm just going to do that for some of these thumbnails here. So if we pop up into this first one, we do something like this. They're all still going to throw at the same time because we haven't adjusted the animation and offset it. We're going to do that in the end, and I'll show you why. But now we can move on to the next group. And like I said before, we just want to copy. Now we're going to copy everything. So we're going to copy the merge and all 3 of our thumbnails. So we're going to grab another merge and we're just going to make a bunch of copies of this and connect this merge to this merge, this merge to this merge. And we'll make some adjustments to bring this up. We need about 10 of these if we have 30 thumbnails, because 3 per group. So that's 4, 5, and 10. Okay, and you want these to all fall in line with one another. So let's just go ahead and adjust these so that way they're all in line with each other. All right, so they're all in line with one another. We're gonna go ahead and just connect all these merges and then connect the rectangle mask to every single one of these. All right, now that we have that connected, we should have an animation throw going on here. Our images are not appearing on the screen anymore, and that's because our camera got disconnected. Okay, that makes sense. So let's go ahead, pull this back into the viewer, and there's our 3 images. So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to offset all these images so they don't pop up on the screen at the same time. And what I did to do this is I actually used a free tool for Davinci Resolve, which is actually awesome. I'll link a video on how to set that up and get that in the description down below. It's Taquito's script, but if you want to do this manually, I'll show you that way first. It's not going to be very efficient, but you can do it if you don't want to download the tool. So come into your transforms, and we're basically just going to offset this animation by 3 frames. So go 3 frames forward, and then we're going to come into the keyframes tab, zoom to fit, bring this down, and we're just going to select all of our keyframes and drag them forward till we're on the correct keyframe. So right here, and now we should have 2 offset there. One of those was offset, and now we're going to come to 3 frames after 3 frames, so 6. And now we're going to move all these here. So now we have more offset. All right, now that we got Taquito scripts booted up, we're gonna actually open it up in Fusion. So we're gonna go to Workspace, Scripts, RS, and then the Comp utility. This is gonna make this process so much faster in offsetting our keyframes. We actually need to reset what we already have done in the offsetting. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag these keyframes back so that way they're all in the same exact spot. All right, now to offset these keyframes all at once, we need to select the top transform first. We need to hit RS comp, and then we need to hit copy param. What we're going to do is we're going to select source with this first one selected, and we're going to go to the translation Y and Z because that's what we have parameters on. We're going to select those two, hitting shift and clicking, and now we're going to select all the transforms. All right, now check this out. We want to create an offset of 3 frames. So we're going to do step and select 3, and then we're going to hit set. Look, it just did all of that for us. So now we can literally X this out and check out our animation. All right, let's bring it into the viewer first. That might work a little bit better. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so great. We have our animation, but we're not exactly done yet because all of the animations coming on the screen look the same. So if you want a little bit of variety, you can do multiple different things. You can either come in and you can start tweaking the rotations of all the different image planes down here, or rather than just having go by 15 and negative 15, we can start changing this value as well. We can do 30, we can do negative 30, and we can just play around with the values here. So now we can check out, see what that looks like. Now they're going to come out wider, the thumbnails, and then maybe we can go to 5, and then we can go to negative 5, and then and it looks like this transform is not even connected, so that was a good call right there. And then we can do back to 15. We can do on this one, we can do 20, we can do negative 20. And some of these transforms are just not even connected for some reason. So make sure you go in and double check that, but we'll change this one to 5, negative 5, and back to 15. And you gotta kind of mess around with it. Whatever you really want, that's what you're gonna put. You gotta play around with this to figure out exactly what you want. So now they're being thrown all over the place. And like I said before, you can also adjust the rotation on some of these. So if we just start playing with them randomly, this could look really weird, could look really bad, but let's see. All right, and we'll just leave it at that. Some of them we didn't adjust, some of them we did. There's just a little bit of variation in here, and we'll see how this looks. We'll let the animation play through a couple times because it's lagging a bit because it needs to render out. But overall, it looks pretty good. There's some that are the same in there. If you really want them different, you need to go through all 30 of them and really figure that out. But overall, I think the animation really looks great. So we'll go ahead and let this play through again. And yeah, that looks super nice. It's super cool. So what we're gonna do now is we're actually going to add one more because we want one for the Davinci Resolve logo itself. So what we're going to do for that is I'm just going to connect that to our last merge, and I'm just going to separate this out to actually get the Davinci logo right here. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this median one with the Davinci Resolve logo. We're going to make this one bigger. So I'm actually going to make it, let's see. We'll make this one really big. It's going to be 0.7. It's going to take up a lot more room than the other stuff. Oh, but I need to account for comp size. So we'll make this one really big. Maybe this might even take up the whole screen. I don't know. We gotta look. We'll just keep it at normal size. We'll keep it at 1. So then we come in here, we can watch our animation, and it looks like our Davinci Resolve logo is just kind of rotating around. So maybe rather than, we might need to adjust our animation path as well. So let's go ahead and go in here, and we want to make sure it comes on at the correct time. So I'm going to come into our last transform. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 keyframes over, so frame 90. This one we will adjust by hand, and we will just scoot this over and take a look at this. So we can come into the image plane, and we can adjust this to make this look a little bit better. And we'll do something like that, but also it kind of comes on too soon, so we will need to either adjust the scaling, or we need to adjust the overall animation itself to maybe we could do it a couple different ways. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to adjust the time that it takes for this animation, so that way the Davinci logo doesn't appear on the screen for a little bit. So I'm going to select all my keyframes, time stretch it, and bring it to this frame here. And we might want to adjust the transform, make it a little bit smaller, make it more like 0.5, and it'll still be bigger than the thumbnails, and it'll still be really noticeable. So now we can go ahead, check this out. Boom, Davinci logo in there. And we'll even pull this forward a little bit. So we'll go to the last one, and we'll pull this forward even more. So we get something like this. And we'll pull it forward in the middle keyframe as well. And then you can come in, you can smooth out the spline however you want. So we did Control A, S, T, we'll do 50, and then we'll do 50 over here. All right, so we're gonna watch all the thumbnails come in. Boom! So that looks pretty cool. And the last and final thing that we need to do here is add in some nice motion blur. All right, so I've been playing around with motion blur a lot, and I got this from Clout VFX. Set your quality to around 10 and your shutter angle somewhere in between 80 and 90, and increase that center bias to 1, and now you should have something looking really nice and clean. All right, so the last thing that we need to do is we actually need to put in our images and switch them out, so that way we don't have the same thumbnail going through and through. So what you do for that, it's super simple. You just go through your media in one by one, and we would drag on the image that we want from the media pool to our media in right here. So number 2 with number 2, the third one right here, and just go all the way down the list. And then you have something like this.